My brother called his Christmas gifts trash, so our parents gave them to me and said, he didn't deserve them anyway. He hasn't spoken to me in 6 years. Throw away because this situation still haunts me and I need advice about whether I should try to reach out to my brother after all these years. This happened when I was 16 and my brother Jake was 19, and it completely destroyed our family dynamic. I'm 22 now and still processing what went wrong that Christmas morning. For context, my family was middle class but not wealthy. My dad worked as an electrician and my mom was a school secretary, so money was always somewhat tight, especially around the holidays. My parents always tried their best to make Christmas special for Jake and me, but they couldn't afford expensive gifts. Usually we'd get practical things like clothes, maybe a small electronics item, and 1 or 2 things we'd specifically asked for if they were reasonably priced. Jake had always been what you might call the difficult child. He was smart but unmotivated in school, had a tendency to be moody and critical, and had developed this attitude by high school that our family wasn't good enough for him. He'd make comments about how his friends' families had more money, better cars, nicer houses. He seemed embarrassed by our solidly middle-class lifestyle and was constantly comparing our parents to other kids' parents who had professional jobs or more disposable income. By the time he was 19, Jake was in his sophomore year of college on a partial academic scholarship. He was majoring in business and had gotten really into this whole entrepreneurship mindset where he talked constantly about elevating himself and not accepting mediocrity. He'd come home from college with these ideas about success and wealth that made him even more critical of our parents and our family situation. Looking back now, I can see that Jake was probably struggling with identity issues and feeling insecure about our family's economic status compared to his college peers. But at the time, his constant criticism and entitled attitude just seemed hurtful and ungrateful. Christmas 2017 was when everything fell apart. I was a junior in high school, and Jake was home from college for winter break. The tension had been building for weeks because Jake kept making snide comments about our family's Christmas traditions and budget. Are we doing the same bargain basement Christmas as usual? He asked a few days before, when Mom was talking about our plans. Jake, we do our best with what we have, Mom said, clearly hurt. I know. I'm just saying maybe I'm getting too old for all this. Those comments should have been a warning sign, but none of us anticipated how bad Christmas morning would actually be. Christmas morning arrived, and like always, we gathered around our modest tree to exchange gifts. The atmosphere started out normal. Mom made her special Christmas breakfast, Dad put on his favorite holiday playlist, and we all settled into open presents. My parents had gotten me some clothes I'd asked for, a new phone case, and a guitar starter set because I'd mentioned wanting to learn music. I was genuinely excited about everything, especially the guitar, which I knew they'd stretched their budget to afford. Jake's gifts were similar in value and thoughtfulness. He got some nice dress shirts for job interviews, a business book he'd mentioned wanting, a gift card to his favorite restaurant near campus, and a really nice leather portfolio that our parents had saved up for because he'd talked about needing something professional for internship applications. I thought his gifts were great. My parents had clearly put thought into what would be useful for him as a college student preparing for his career. The leather portfolio alone probably cost more than all my gifts combined. But Jake's reaction was immediate and brutal. He picked up each gift with this expression of disappointment and barely contained disgust. When he opened the business book, he said, I already read this one. When he saw the dress shirts, he said, these aren't the right style. The gift card got an eye roll and a comment about how the restaurant isn't even that good. My parents were trying to stay positive, making comments like, we can exchange the shirts if you don't like them, and, we thought you said you liked that restaurant, but I could see their faces falling with each dismissive response. But the portfolio was what set him off completely. Seriously, he said, holding it up like it was contaminated. This is from like Walmart or something. Do you know what my classmates carry their stuff in? This looks like something a high school student would use. My parents' faces fell completely. I could see my mom fighting back tears, and my dad's jaw was clenched in a way that meant he was getting really angry. Jake, we thought you'd like it, Dad said quietly. You said you needed something for interviews. Yeah, Something professional. Not this trash. The word trash hung in the air like a slap. My mom actually flinched when he said it, like he'd physically hit her. We saved for months for that portfolio, Mom said, her voice shaking. We thought it was nice. Well, your standards and mine are clearly different, Jake said, setting everything aside dismissively. Thanks, I guess. Is this it? The room was completely silent except for the Christmas music playing softly in the background. I felt sick watching my parents' faces. They looked devastated. That's when my dad stood up. I'd never seen him look so angry and hurt at the same time. You know what, Jake? You're right. These gifts aren't good enough for you. Sarah, do you want them? I was stunned. Dad, what? Jake doesn't appreciate what we got him. He thinks they're trash. Maybe you'll actually value them. Jake finally seemed to realize he'd gone too far. Dad, I didn't mean. No, you were very clear about what you meant, Dad said, his voice getting louder as he gathered up Jake's gifts. You think the things we worked hard to buy you are trash. So Sarah can have them. She appreciates the effort we put into Christmas. He didn't deserve them anyway, Mom said quietly, and those words hit like a bomb. Jake's face went white. Mom, I'm tired of watching you look down on everything we do for you, she continued, her voice getting stronger. We've never been good enough for you. Our house isn't nice enough. Our gifts aren't expensive enough. Well, you don't have to pretend to be grateful anymore. Jake tried to backtrack. I was just being honest about my needs. I didn't mean to sound ungrateful. Honest, Dad said, his voice rising. Calling our gifts trash is honest? Making your mother feel bad for trying her best is honest? Fine, Jake said, standing up abruptly. Keep the stuff. Give it all to Sarah. Clearly she's the perfect child anyway. He stormed out of the room and didn't come back down for the rest of Christmas Day. When he left to go back to college a few days later, things were still incredibly tense. None of us knew it would be the last Christmas we'd spent together as a family. That incident completely changed our family dynamic, and I ended up caught in the middle in ways I never expected. My parents gave me all of Jake's gifts, which felt wrong, but I didn't know how to refuse without seeming ungrateful myself. The leather portfolio became my school folder, and I wore the dress shirts to school events. Every time I used something that had been meant for Jake, I felt guilty, like I was benefiting from the destruction of my family. The aftermath was immediate and devastating. Jake barely spoke to my parents for the rest of his college years. When he did call, the conversations were stilted and cold. He stopped coming home for holidays, claiming he was too busy with internships and school activities. My parents, meanwhile, seemed to write him off completely. They stopped asking about his grades, his social life, his plans after graduation. When people asked about Jake, they'd give short, neutral responses like, "He's fine," or "He's focusing on school." The most painful part was how it affected my relationship with Jake. Before that Christmas, we'd had a normal sibling relationship. We weren't super close because of the age gap, but we got along fine and I looked up to him as my older brother. After that Christmas, Jake seemed to blame me for what happened. I think he felt like I'd been rewarded for his honesty, and that our parents were using me to punish him. When he'd call home and I'd try to talk to him, he'd be polite but distant. "How's school?" he'd ask. "Good. How's college?" "Fine." And that would be the extent of our conversation. The dynamic got worse as time went on. My parents started praising me more obviously, making comments about how I was grateful and appreciative, unlike some people. They'd buy me nicer things and make a point of saying how happy they were that I valued what they did for me. I started to realize that I was being used as a weapon against Jake, and it made me feel terrible. I didn't want to be the good child, in contrast to my ungrateful brother. I just wanted my family back to normal. Jake graduated college and got a good job in marketing. He moved to a different city, about 4 hours away. He sends our parents a card on their birthdays and Christmas, but that's about the extent of their relationship. He hasn't spoken to me at all in 6 years. The guilt I felt about keeping Jake's gifts became something that followed me everywhere during high school. Every time I used that leather portfolio for school projects, I thought about my brother. When I wore one of his dress shirts to a school dance, I wondered if he needed dress shirts for job interviews and couldn't afford them. What made it worse was how my parents started treating me differently after that Christmas. They became almost obsessively focused on my gratitude and appreciation. Every gift, every gesture, every family meal became an opportunity for them to point out how thankful I was compared to Jake. "See how Sarah always says please and thank you," Mom would say to Dad, loud enough for me to hear. Some children understand the value of what they're given. When I got accepted to my top choice college, my parents threw a celebration dinner and invited extended family. During his speech, my dad made a point of saying how proud he was to have a daughter who appreciates everything we've done for her. The implication was obvious to everyone in the room. The pressure to be the perfect daughter became exhausting. I found myself overthanking for everything, being almost aggressively grateful for normal parental support. When my parents helped me move into my college dorm, I thanked them so many times that my roommate asked if everything was okay. "You don't have to thank your parents for literally everything," she said. "That's kind of their job." But in my family, gratitude had become a performance, a way to prove I wasn't like Jake. College gave me some distance from the situation, but it also highlighted how abnormal our family dynamic had become. My friends would talk casually about their siblings, the fights they'd had, the reconciliations, the normal push and pull of family relationships. Meanwhile, I had a brother who might as well have been dead for all the contact we had. During my sophomore year, I found Jake on social media. He'd changed his privacy settings so I couldn't see much, but I could see he was in a relationship with someone named Maria. In his profile picture, he was smiling genuinely, the kind of smile I remembered from when we were kids. It made me realize I hadn't seen him truly happy in years before that Christmas incident. I spent hours staring at that photo, wondering about his life. Did Maria know about our family situation? Had he told her why he never talked about having a sister? Did he ever think about me, or had he successfully moved on from our family entirely? When I started dating my boyfriend Alex during junior year, I was terrified to bring him home. What if my parents compared him favorably to Jake in front of him? What if they made comments about how happy they were that I'd chosen someone appreciative and family-oriented? The visit went exactly as I'd feared. My parents gushed over Alex, made pointed comments about how wonderful it was to have young people in the house who valued family, and generally used him as another opportunity to take shots at Jake's absence. "Sarah's always been good at choosing the right people to surround herself with," Mom told Alex over dinner. "She knows how to appreciate what matters." Alex was confused by the comments, and later that night he asked me about my brother. "They keep talking about someone named Jake like he's some kind of cautionary tale," he said. "What happened to him?" That was the first time I'd ever tried to tell the story to someone outside the family. As I explained what had happened that Christmas morning, Alex's expressions grew more and more troubled. "Wait," he said when I finished. "Your brother was rude about some gifts when he was 19, so your parents gave them to you and essentially cut him off? And you haven't talked to him in 5 years?" Hearing it from an outsider's perspective made the situation sound even more insane than I'd realized. "He was really hurtful," I said, trying to defend my parents' reaction. "Yeah, but he was a teenager," Alex said. "And it sounds like he was dealing with some insecurity about money and class differences. That's pretty normal for college kids." Alex's perspective was a wake-up call. He came from a family where siblings fought and said hurtful things sometimes, but they worked through it. The idea of permanently cutting off a family member over one bad moment was foreign to him. "Have you ever thought about reaching out to him yourself?" Alex asked. The question terrified me, but it also planted a seed. Why hadn't I tried harder to maintain a relationship with Jake? Why had I accepted our parents' verdict that he was irredeemably ungrateful and didn't deserve to be part of our family? During my senior year of college, I started therapy partly to deal with anxiety about my post-graduation plans, but the sessions kept circling back to my family situation. My therapist, Drive Rodriguez, helped me understand how I'd been triangulated into my parents' conflict with Jake. "You became a tool for your parents to punish your brother," she explained. "They used your gratitude and success as a way to demonstrate what Jake should have been. That's not fair to you or to him." She helped me see that my guilt about keeping Jake's gifts wasn't just about the material objects. It was about being complicit in his exclusion from the family. Every time I used something that had been meant for him, I was participating in the narrative that he didn't deserve love or consideration from his family. What would it mean for you to reach out to your brother? Dr. Rodriguez asked during one session. It would mean admitting that what happened was wrong, I said. That my parents were wrong. That I was wrong for going along with it. And how does that feel? Terrifying. What if my parents get angry at me for taking his side? What if they decide I'm ungrateful too? That fear had been controlling me for years. The terror that if I stepped out of my role as the perfect, grateful daughter, I'd lose my family's love too. But Dr. Rodriguez helped me understand that conditional love isn't really love at all. The decision to finally reach out to Jake came after a particularly difficult conversation with my parents during spring break of my senior year. I'd been home for a week, and the absence of Jake felt more pronounced than usual. His empty bedroom had been converted into my mom's craft room, as if erasing any physical reminder of him would somehow validate their decision. During dinner one night, my dad mentioned that his coworker's son had gotten a promotion at a marketing firm in the same city where Jake worked. Without thinking, I said, I wonder if Jake's doing well at his job. The silence that followed was deafening. Why would you wonder about that? My mom asked, her voice sharp. Because he's my brother, I said, immediately regretting bringing it up. He stopped being your brother when he decided this family wasn't good enough for him, Dad said firmly. Some people choose to walk away from their families. That's his choice to live with. But Dad, he was 19. Don't you think? I think, Mom interrupted, that we've given you everything you could ever want, and if you're not grateful for that, maybe you need to think about what's really important to you. The threat was subtle but clear. Question their treatment of Jake, and I might find myself on the outside too. After graduation, I moved back home temporarily while job hunting. Being in the house where that Christmas morning had happened felt surreal. I found myself staring at the spot where our tree used to be, remembering the moment everything fell apart. One evening, while my parents were out at a dinner party, I went into what used to be Jake's room. Most traces of him were gone, but in the back of the closet, I found a box of his old things that had been overlooked in the conversion to a craft room. Inside were his high school yearbooks, some trophies from academic competitions, and a photo album from our family vacations when we were kids. Flipping through the photos, I saw our family as we used to be, Jake and me building sandcastles, both of us grinning at the camera with identical gap-toothed smiles. Our parents laughing, relaxed, happy. In one photo from a camping trip when I was about 8 and Jake was 12, we were roasting marshmallows around a campfire. Jake had his arm around me protectively, and I was leaning into him with complete trust. We looked like a normal, loving family. I took a photo of that picture with my phone and stared at it for a long time. This was who we used to be. This was what we'd lost. That night, I finally sent Jake a message. Not a long explanation or a detailed apology, just, I found this old photo of us and thought you might want to see it. I miss you, Jake. I miss us. I attached the camping photo and hit send before I could change my mind. The message showed as delivered, then read. I waited, my heart pounding, watching for the 3 dots that would indicate he was typing a response. Hours passed. Then a day. Then 2 days. I started to think he wasn't going to respond at all, that maybe Alex and Dr. Rodriguez had been wrong, that maybe Jake really was done with our family forever. Then, on the 3rd day, my phone buzzed with a response. I miss us too. Update. I ended up driving to Jake's city last weekend. It took me 3 hours to work up the courage to knock on his door, but when I finally did, he answered. He looked shocked to see me, but he let me in. We talked for 4 hours. There were a lot of tears, a lot of apologies from both sides. He told me he's missed me too but didn't know how to reach out. We're planning to have dinner next week, and he's thinking about calling our parents. It's not fixed yet, but it's a start. Sometimes you just have to take the risk and hope that love is stronger than pride. TLDR. My brother rudely called his Christmas gifts trash when we were teenagers. Our parents immediately gave all his gifts to me and said he didn't deserve them. The incident created a permanent rift in our family, and Jake hasn't spoken to me in 6 years. After years of therapy and growing awareness of how toxic our family dynamic became, I finally reached out to him with an old family photo. His response, "I miss us too," opened the door to healing.